All right, we're just going to give everybody a minute here to find their seats, and then we'll kick off the webinar. All right, it's looking like we're getting there. So I'm going to go ahead and start. First, good afternoon, and thank you all for attending the Vrackesboom Computer Consulting Monthly Webinar Series. This is our first for 2023, and we're very excited. Just a heads up, we are recording this and we will post it on our YouTube channel and our website later this week. Also, during the webinar, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screens there. If it pertains to the current topic, I'll interrupt, so I apologize if that happens. Otherwise, we'll answer them all at the end. My name is Kelly Bergman, and I have the pleasure of introducing you to Vaughn Proctor, Channel Account Manager with Netstock. If you have inventory and you want better planning, forecasting, and ordering, this is going to be an hour well spent. And with that, I'm going to hand the floor off to Vaughn.
Thanks so much, Kelly, and thanks everybody for joining us. I'm going to talk a little bit about Netstock today. In the Sage world, known as Sage Inventory Advisor. In Netstock, we refer to it as Netstock Inventory Advisor, but it's the same product and integrates with Sage 100, specifically around supply chain planning, as Kelly said. So I'm going to work through the agenda. As she said, my name is Vaughn Proctor. I'm the Channel Account Manager for Netstock. The agenda that we're going to work through today really is just to talk a little bit about Netstock, who we are and where we fit into the supply chain. We're going to talk a little bit about the state of the supply chain now and why it's so critical to have these type of tools when it comes to inventory planning. Things that you can do and use to stay competitive in your market, and that really is our focus, our big focus with the business, is to be able to enable small and medium-sized businesses to be able to compete in their respective markets with the inventory planning tools that are typically only used in sort of tier 1 businesses. I'm going to go through a live demo with the application as well, show you through some things over there. As Kelly said, happy to field questions if there are. There might be some questions that come up as we're in the demo, so feel free to just post them and we can deal with them during the demo or even after the demo if need be. Excuse my South African accent. I might say forecasting instead of forecasting, but I'll try to remember to say that and say things like demand instead of demand. All right, so let's start a little bit with Netstock and who we are. Netstock is a supply chain planning business. There's a cloud application that integrates with the ERP to enable businesses to do better supply chain planning. We have been around since 2010, and we have been involved with Sage since 2012 when we started white labeling the Sage Inventory Advisor product and integrate with the Sage product. So we've come a long way, specifically with Sage, and I hope to partner with them for many years to come. One of the key things over that period of time is that we have really done well with our customer support, and you can see on the G2 website, I don't have the latest ones from 4, but our last results from summer 2022, and a lot of really happy customers, and we pride ourselves on our customer engagement and the ROI that we produce for our customers. All right, so let's move on a little bit and talk a little bit about the state of supply chain. Many of these things you probably already know about. When it comes to supply chain disruptions, that seems to be a big topic, and something that we find is not going to change anytime soon. Since COVID started and all the other things that have come with it, businesses with inventory, specifically in distribution and manufacturing, are struggling with a lot of disruption in the supply chain. It's making it very, very difficult to do proper planning. Rising costs, longer lead times, labor shortages, and then obviously the effects of that as far as increased stockouts are concerned, or discrepancies in demand, which cause gluts in inventory, and excess that's tying up cash in the business. So these are the type of things that businesses with inventory are dealing with on a day-to-day basis, which is making it very difficult for them to do the inventory planning. And because of that, the results of these things are that from our research with customers, these are the type of things that they're struggling with, and you'll see a lot of them are sitting in the major challenges area because of all these disruptions. So having plenty of stock outs, and we know what effect that has on the business when we're not able to increase sales, and yet having significant excess, which is tying up cash that we could be using to buy the right inventory and sell that and become more profitable. Spending too much time on ordering, and most businesses are spending hours, days, and sometimes even weeks in spreadsheets trying to figure out what to buy, when to buy, and how much to buy, to make sure that the stock is optimized, that they're not tying up too much cash, and that they're making the sales that they need to make. And this all comes down to forecasting. So the more accurate your forecasting is, the more interactive you are with your forecasting, and the more of an ability you have to change that forecasting and be proactive on it instead of reactive, the better all the other planning is going to happen in the background. And that's really the four major challenges that distributors and manufacturers are dealing with at the moment. So it comes down to having the right tools, and typically ERP, and the reason why Sage Inventory Advisor was created for Sage specifically, is that ERPs are not built for planning. They're very good at inventory control, warehouse management systems that do very good inventory control and scanning and that type of stuff, but not really purpose built for inventory planning and stock optimization. And that's really where Netstock Inventory Advisor fits into the picture. So we integrate with the ERP, we extract data from the ERP, and then we will analyze and use that data to optimize inventory and create recommended orders and the type of visual information required to be able to plan better in the business. All right, so with Netstock, there is automated supply and demand planning. They have the ability to model different inventory policy and see what effect that would have on the business. We can generate ideal orders at a touch of a button that we can send back to Sage 100. We can track performance against targets that have been set for the business. And we can also project into the future, sort of like the crystal ball, on based on the forecasting and the policies that we've set. What does the future look like, and where's the business headed, and is that right, and should we adjust those policies accordingly? Without Netstock, and typically this is done with businesses off of reporting out of the ERP and very complex spreadsheets, always reacting to the supply chain disruptions, working capital tied up, stock outs happening that are hurting the business, and then always a post-mortem on what went wrong after it went wrong. So those are the type of things that we're trying to avoid with Netstock and help with the planning process. Right, so a little something here from one of our customers. And, you know, I spoke about the crystal ball. There really isn't anything that's going to completely fix the disruptions and the supply chain problems that we're sitting with. But if you don't have visibility into what's happening in the supply chain, you're not able to be proactive in dealing with those things, and you'll end up being reactive anyway. So, you know, regardless of whether we can do anything about what's going on in the world, we are able to help you manage those supply chain disruptions a lot better, just through visually being able to see what's going on in the supply chain. It's a very purpose-built application, as you'll see when I go through it. The workflows and the exceptions and everything is driven towards better supply chain planning and better stock optimization. All right, so that's my story as far as the presentation is concerned. I don't want to spend too much time. Obviously, you'd love to have a look at the software and see what it does. So I'm going to move straight into a demo. This is a live demo that we have. We've actually just completely changed the UI. So there's a lot of new and lovely things that are built into the application. But you'll see as I move through it, as I said, it's very purpose-built to help with supply chain planning. The dashboards that you would log on to in the beginning are always tracking your targets and where you are against those, so that you can see how you're doing. We can see the top 3 KPIs over here, all to do with your stock holding, where you were in this. I'm looking at a monthly basis now, but we can see month by month, 5 months ago, where we were, where we are right now. We went from $10.8 million to $8.7 million. There's been a reduction of 20% in that inventory. That's looking pretty good, but we are trying to get to a model of 5.5, and this is a model that Netstock has calculated based on the policies that this business has set. We're saying that that's our model stock that we're targeting, and we're trying to get as close to that as possible. So still some work to do over there, but there has definitely been an improvement, and that's looking pretty good. At the bottom over here, we're looking at the availability rates. So we can see that our fill rate over there was around 17 or around 80%. That has increased to nearly 87%. So there's been a 9% increase over there, but we are targeting 96% availability rate for the business. And everything that Netstock does is working towards these targets as we're going. So we can see that there's been an improvement there in availability and a reduction in the inventory at the same time. And that's really what we want to see happening. But obviously we want to try and get closer to those targets as we're going along. What's preventing us from getting to that model and that target fill rate? Well, we have some excess over there, and you can see the excess is also decreased over that period of time, but we're still sitting with $2.8 million worth of excess. And there's 2,124 items that are making up those excess items. Excess items are anything that we calculate your min-max levels automatically. Anything we see over max is seen as an excess item. It's cash that's tied up that we could be using elsewhere. So we want to highlight that and see if we can free up that cash and use it. Of course, this is a bit of a problem because that inventory is already in the warehouse. So we also want to have a look into the future at your incoming orders. Are those inbound orders surplus to requirements, and are they going to create more excess? Can we give you early warning on that so we can do something about those orders the day after you've placed it, not the day before it arrives? Give you a warning to say that there are there's another $660,000 worth of surplus orders that are going to add to that excess if they land, and can we do something about that to reduce the future excess that's on its way to us, so that we could eventually reduce that excess as well and get closer to that model stock. So always looking into the future to help you. And that's what I was talking about, that proactive exception reporting rather than the reactive post-mortems to see what went wrong. When it comes to the availability rates, why are we not at 96%? Well, we're stocked out of 1,176 items. It's potentially costing us nearly 700,000 in lost sales, and that's calculated on the forecast sales from today until the next delivery arrives, or a lead time ahead to get an idea of what that lost sales value might be. You can see that this is reduced as well from 1.6. So there's definitely been a huge reduction in those stockouts, but there's still quite a bit of work to do. Again, these are stockouts that are here already, and they're already hurting us. And very difficult to prevent those. We're just trying to mitigate the risk or shorten the time that we're going to be stocked out of those items. But we also want to have a look into the future again at those future purchase orders, at the run rates of the items and how those items are selling, to see if there are any items that are potentially going to stock out. So we have stock right now, we have stock on order perhaps, but we can see that there's a window period based on the rate of sales that item is going to stock out in the future, and give you early warning of that. So there's 113 items over there that might cost us another 160,000 in the future. Can we do something to expedite that, to make sure that we get those items in time, and we can mitigate the risk of those stockouts happening in the future? So very powerful to highlight where the imbalances are in the inventory, and also look into the future at where future problems are on their way, so we can do something about that proactively and make sure that we get closer to those models as we're going along. All right, so you'll also see on the lists over there, we have the top 5 lists. We're very we think that the sort of like Pareto 80-20 method is very important, because we can't sit and work through 1,176 items. You'd need a whole team to do that in a couple of days. But we can concentrate on the items that have the biggest impact on the business. So typically the top 5 are based on the value or impact on the business. We can see over there that top stock out over there makes up 150,000 of that 714, and those 5 over there make up 318,000 of that 714,000. And the idea is, if we can chip away at the top 5 every day, we're going to make a real big difference in the business without getting bogged down and working through thousands of items at a time. So we can see there's always a top 5 list in each of these blocks, but we can also drill into a full report over there, and that report can be filtered by any of the departments or brands or whatever it is that we pull in from Sage 100 if you want to do further analysis on those. And everything is exportable into CSV or Excel, so you can create reports pretty quickly on the fly out of these dashboards as well. Okay, you'll also see these items are color-coded over here and have little letters in them. And that leads us into the second part, which is really important as far as Netstock or Sage Inventory Advisor is concerned, and that's the classification. So when we pull the information from the ERP system, we'll automatically classify the items based firstly on the value contribution or the cost of sales. So there we have A items, which are typically 80% of the cost of sales in the business, B items that are 16, and C items that are last 4% of contribution. And then we do the same thing, high, medium, low, based on velocity. So these are the fastest moving items, unit sales, 80% of my unit sales are coming through those 320 items over there, 16% in medium, and the last 4% in low. And then we intersect them in this 9-block matrix. Okay, so A coming across from left to right are the highest value items, high coming down from top to bottom are the fastest moving items. Where they intersect, you can see the bread and butter items over there in green, of which these 135 are the most critical items in our business. If we do nothing but concentrate on those 135 items, we'd be running a pretty good business. Of course, we do want to concentrate on all the items, but these are definitely the most important for us to concentrate on. We're also going to highlight within that high value items over there, the slower moving high value items, capital items that are tying up a lot of cash, maybe not moving so often. We want to be very sure that we're not buying too much of this stock over here and not holding too much of that cash. Down here, the CH items are very fast moving, inexpensive items. We always want to have those items available. That they are not very costly, so we could probably purchase a whole bunch of them, get great service out of them. Our customers are going to be really happy, and that we're going to spin those items really, really quickly. As we move down towards the red, we have the purple items. Those are the 16%ers, either moving up or down into the green or red. And then the red block, these are really the dogs of the business, the tail end of the inventory. This is where we look at rationalizing out of the product range. You can see 2,226 items over there versus the 135, only 4% of the unit sales and 4% of the value contribution to the business. So not great contributors. Okay. And the reason why we do this ABC analysis is to be able to focus investment in the right areas. If we have a look at the stock count, we can see, as I said, most of the items are sitting over there in that red. And very few items that are actually sitting in those green areas over there. But if we look at the demand, we can see that demand is predominantly coming from those areas over there. And that's really where we want to invest money, because that's what's making the business run, right? Rather than the demand coming out of the red areas over there. So the idea is, how do we move investment into those areas rather than into those areas where we don't really need them, right? And we do that by setting target fill rates for each business. We'll work with them. They'll decide on what the target fill rate should be for each of these blocks in the matrix. We can see over there, 98% over there on those 135 top items, obviously very high target fill rates for the most important items. We can have 100% target fill rate over here, which means that there's, we can invest quite a bit in there. As I said, it's not very, it's a very inexpensive item. So you're probably not going to tie up a lot of cash over there, and we get great service out of it. As we go into these capital items over here, lower target fill rate, so we don't tie up too much cash there. Great for turnover, but they're not going to turn a lot. So we don't want to invest too much over there. And then as we move down into the red, I've got lower target fill rate, which means we're not trying to overcome all of the risk against stock outs in these areas, because if we do stock out of items over here, they're not going to have a big effect on our business. And then concentrating investments in where we need it the most in these green areas over here, so that we can be as profitable as possible. So once those are set, Netstock will drive towards these targets automatically. And these are what makes up that overall availability target that we saw on the dashboards, and how we move towards those targets as we're going along. And we can also do further analysis within these blocks over here to see where the problem areas are in each one. Now, when it comes to the AH items, and if I go in over here, I'm going to see a breakdown of those 135 items over there. We can see 7 of them are in excess, 29 are in surplus, 15 potential stock out, 22 are stocked out. Of my most important items, 22 are stocked out. And obviously, this is where we're going to concentrate when it comes to these green items over here, because that's most critical to us in this block is the potential stock outs and the stock outs. We can see the stock value, we can see the model stock, we can see the demand coming through. We can see our current fill on those 22 items, which is very low, 50% against a target of 98%, and our lost sales value, 190,000 coming just out of those 22. Drill down into those 22 most important stocked out items in the business, and we can do something, focus on those to make sure that we don't lose too many of those sales as we're going along. So the reason why I'm showing you it is just to see how visual it is and how quickly it is to get down into reports, to concentrate on the exceptions that are most important to the business rather than getting bogged down by a lot of information and working through thousands of items in spreadsheets. Over here in my CLO, I'd be worried a lot more about excess and surplus. I can see there's 711 items that are in excess over here, 69 items that are in surplus, and that's going to tie up a lot of cash. $1 million sitting in excess value in my slowest moving, lowest contributing block, right? So this is where we might want to run a fire sale. We want, if we can send some of the inventory back to the supplier if possible, free up that cash. There's $1 million sitting over there that we could be using elsewhere in the business that are going to be more profitable for the business. So you can see how quick and easy it is to get down to those lists and get down to the problem areas and do something about that. All right, so that's the classification. That's really there to focus the attention and the investment of the business into the areas that are most important to them. The next thing is the forecasting. So there's a forecasting engine built into the application. We will automatically forecast every single item at every location, and then we will drive that up at location level, regional level, or national level if required. We can see here I'm looking at a warehouse. This is the consolidated forecast for that warehouse. We can see the historical sales over there in blue. We can see historical sale versus forecast for the last 12 months, and we can see the future forecast for the next 12 months. So we can see there's some seasonal spikes over there. The forecasting engine will automatically look at trends, look at seasonality, a whole bunch of forecasting algorithms that it works through to decide what the best fit is for every single item in every location, and then aggregates that up to a location, regional or national level, as I was saying. We can see the upward trend over there of the sales over the last couple of years and what we forecast to be happening in the next year. And we're also going to highlight again the top 5 offenders when it comes to forecast variances. So where are concentrate on that. We can intervene with any of these items and adjust forecasts manually if there's market knowledge, customer knowledge, sales knowledge, and marketing knowledge that you have in the business that we're not able to see in this historical demand. You're able to override those forecasts either at an item level or at a macro level. Here we can filter by groups, suppliers, demand types, classifications, however you want to filter that. And then you can make adjustments on those items. Let's say, a specific set of items that we perhaps want to do for the next 3 months. That we feel that demand's going to rise because of market conditions by 10%. I'm just going to model it. I'm not going to apply it, but you can see over there when I model it, it'll increase the forecast over that three-month period. It'll keep that seasonal spike in increasing that, and that'll then drive down to any of the items within that grouping that you've filtered to, and increase the all of those items by 10% over that period of time. The type of things that you can use for things like promotions, any type of events or market knowledge that you have in the future that we are not able to pick up in historical data, you can intervene. And typically we would advise that at least once a month, there's a forecasting meeting that's being held, and we're tracking these under and over forecasts, having discussions with sales and marketing, and making adjustments as required You can also leave little notes next to it so we can see if you do make adjustments, why those adjustments were made, for discussion points into the future. Yeah, so all of those things will work on the forecasting engine. I'll get into a little bit of detail on the item as well, but I think I probably want to save that for the distribution and manufacturing item. But you can see over here, this is a lot of detail that I'm going to get into, but this is typically the information that we'll be pulling from Sage 100. There's the auto classification. This is one of those AH items, one of those 135 most important items. It's coming from the Consolidated Tire Company as a supplier, so we know where to purchase from. The historical data we've used over there, and we've created a forecast automatically. There's no seasonal spikes over here, so no seasonality, but there is definitely a linear upward trend over there, and we followed that trend going forward in the forecast over there. We then build safety stock levels, min-max levels, reorder points on top of that. And there's a whole bunch of factors that are taken into consideration into the safety stock level. And the great thing about this, and why this is so important and differentiates safety stock so much from what we would do in a spreadsheet, is that it's not static. It's a dynamic safety stock level. If any of these factors change, the safety stock level will change with it. So, and what I mean by that is the target fill rate. If the items in that classification move from one block to the next, and we have different policies on how we want to purchase that item, different fill rates, that would affect how much stock we're holding, how much safety stock we're holding against that item. So a red item wouldn't have as much safety stock as a green item, obviously, because we're investing quite heavily in those items. So that would affect your safety stock level, your replenishment cycle, how often you purchase, and how much cycle stock we need to purchase at a time. Your lead time, the longer the lead time, obviously the more stock, and then also supply risk and forecast risk. So not only do we look at your measured lead, your stated lead time, but we also measure the lead time to see whether there's a risk in the supply chain. So if there are late deliveries, we're buffering safety stock. We're basically extending the lead time automatically because the risk of delivery is increased, or lack of delivery is increased. If the lead time shorten, we decrease the safety stock, and the same with the forecasting. So if on average we're over forecasting, and that's creating additional stock in the supply chain, we will decrease the safety stock levels. And again, there's obviously a bias towards under forecasting, because those lead to stockouts, which are a lot more critical. We will buffer safety stock against those if there's under forecasting happening as well. So we're adjusting safety stock levels based on risk factors that we're calculating out of the supply chain and our own forecasting measurements as well. So there we have a safety stock level of 12 days. We're going to use that to then build, there's my safety stock 12 days, which happens to be 90 units at that point, based on the demand that we've forecast over there. The lead time of 90 days, so 90 days plus our safety stock, will give us our reorder point. So a lead time before we hit our safety stock, we want to reorder. We want to reorder a replenishment cycle's worth of stock, which is 227 units, which will bring us to our order up to a maximum level, which is automatically calculated over there for every single item in every location. Okay, we're then going to take that and we're going to compare that to the actual inventory position. So here we have 12 days worth of stock, 72 items. We have some, we don't have any overdue demand, which is like customer orders that we see in the ERP, but there is some allocated stock, perhaps for a job, or the stock has been allocated. So we can see that our available stock level is actually 34 units. All right, we have 648 on order. So obviously we're looking at your purchase orders in Sage 100. We can see that there are some purchase orders, one's overdue, and those are on their way. So we can see that there's 648 on its way. We want to add that in. And based on that, our net stock position is 682. Now that position over there, taking all those in consideration, is just under the 685. So as soon as this dips under my reorder point of 685, there will be a recommended order to bring us back to the maximum level of 912. So we've just dipped under that, and therefore there is a recommended order of 230 units, and we'll see that order automatically come up in the order section, which I'm going to go to next. Okay, here we're tracking the full performance. We can see we were out of stock for 20 days out of 30, in stock for 10. So we have a 66% availability of this item in the last 30 days, we're targeting 98%. So a bit of work to be done there with the inventory. All right, here's a supply performance. We can see we're looking at historical purchase orders, late deliveries, early deliveries, in full or short supplied. And then we are tracking against that to say the planned lead time in here, in fact, they're arriving sooner than what we were planning for, and therefore we're reducing your safety stock in your supplier risk over there. Okay, so let's have a look at this. There's 230 items that are recommended on order over here for the consolidated tire company. If we go to orders every single day, any item that goes through its reorder point is automatically put onto an order schedule for you. So as I said, those orders are available to you at a touch of a button. We can see the suppliers listed over there one by one. There's information like overdue sales orders that need to be furnished for your customers. Inbound orders that are on their way from the supplier, and then the order information over here at the end. And in fact, I think I'm going to just move into a different order screen because this will. So in fact, let's first start with an item that has dependent demand. Now I know that a lot of the businesses with Sage 100 are involved with manufacturing and distribution. And that adds another level of complexity into the planning process when it comes to dependent demand coming through the distribution channel, as well as dependent demand flowing through the manufacturing, the bill of material to the raw material to make sure that we're planning properly. This item over here, you'll see much the same as the previous item that I showed. It has its own information coming out of the ERP. It's also an AH item, but this is on production line 1. So this is an item that's produced here at Central Store, but this database has a whole bunch of other locations as well in its distribution channel. Now, the previous example was only one warehouse. So if we look at the historical information over here, we can see that the demand type over here is seasonality, and we can see the seasonal spikes going over there. But we can also see that there are additional DC. You can see the history over there. You can see DC, and you can see the forecast. So the forecast is based on the historical information. The DC is distribution demand that's coming through the distribution channel. Now, how do we do that? So for every single item, based on the replenishment cycles that we've put in over here, the lead times, we have a 12-month order plan going forward. You can see over there, we have the projected orders into the future, and you can see we have bigger orders in peak time, smaller orders in the troughs to make sure that we're not holding too much or too little. Okay, this projected order is then rolled up onto the DC from each of the dependent warehouses that are dependent on this DC. So there are the warehouses over there. If we look at small branch 1, you can see that there is going to be, or there is a recommended order or a projected order on the DC, which would be a transfer on the DC for 1,000 items, 2,600 the next month. Remote store over here obviously has excess and doesn't have a requirement, or is not going to have a requirement until 3 months from now. So we calculated at every warehouse the optimal stock levels over there with the lead times from the distribution center and projected orders that we then roll up onto the DC. We can see over there the overall demand over there for August is going to be 1.1, and that is then the demand that you see over there, DC demand, month by month into the future. We have a 12-month forecast of what the distribution demand is going to be on the Central Store. Okay, so that takes care of the dependent demand coming into the Central Store or the distribution center. But this is also a manufactured item that has a bill of materials. So that double demand over there is then going to drive through the bill of materials. So here we can see this is 20001 that is coming through on production line 1, but it has a whole bunch of raw materials that are attached to that. So we will use the bill of material in Sage 100. You can see the different factors that are involved over there from the raw materials. that are making up this finished good. So the forecast of 2001 will then be will explode through the bill of material down to the raw material levels over here. And you might have some raw materials like this GLU 004, which is glue, which is only consumed in the manufacturing of this item. Or you might have some items like this over here, which is actually a component that is sold directly as well as consumed in the bill of material. You might also have a bill of material where the bill of material is made to order, or in this case, it's made to stock, where we will actually build stock of this item and make sure that we're holding stock at that level. So we can hold stock at different levels. We can drive the forecast through to the raw materials to create dependent demand from the manufacturing process or projected manufacturing. And we can use, we can double that up with direct demand on that component if it is sold directly. So this item over here, there's 2002. This is the raw material. It is used not only in 2002, but a whole bunch of other finished goods that also use this component and different factors of it. Obviously, the forecast of all of those items will then drive through to create overall manufacturing forecast or dependent demand on this raw material item. We can see in the table over here, there's 2001. We can see we need 4,000 kilograms, or this is not the glue, or liters or kilograms or whatever this item is, to manufacture this in August. These items won't need to be manufactured. Those items will. So the total demand is going to be 9,000, just over 9,000 liters or kilograms of this item. And again, the demand is then calculated over here, and that will be the total dependent demand coming through from the manufacturing process. But this item might also have its own sales of this item and its own forecast for direct sales, which will then be doubled up over there. So we can see the sales history, which creates the forecast, and the BOM demand, which then comes through from the different finished goods that use this raw material in their manufacturing and projected manufacturing for the next 12 months. So yeah, that's a lot to take in, and you could, it's nice to see it visually, but we basically plan right through the item. I mean, you can get into supply chain map. This is going to be very busy, but it'll give you a good visual of what we're actually doing. We're planning right through from the demand that's coming from customer orders and forecasting that it's happening. Let me just connect this might take a while to upload. Okay, there we can see the connections. So we can see customer orders where there's outstanding, and customer forecasts that are driven into certain warehouse locations. Okay, so that goes back, that's all the demand going into the different locations, customer forecasts and customer orders, which then drive demand through those locations onto the central warehouse or the DC. Okay, which then, where is that DC demand? Then becomes demand, sorry, where we go, small branch one into the central store. Okay, so the DC demand then drives into the central store on a bill of material item or a manufactured item, which then drives demand through the bill of material. There's the item over there, the raw material, and then to the supplier. Okay, so we're looking at this level over here where all the demand is coming through, where it started off right at the customer and location level, right through to the raw material and our orders with the lead times taken into consideration on the supplier. And we can see this at different levels as well. So I can go up a level, down a level, but just to give you an idea of the complexity of planning that we get involved with and we automate right through the supply chain. All right, so let's go back to the order, and I'm going to take this one as an example. No, this is not the right one. So let's go to the BOM. Let's go back to 2001. This is the finished good item over here. We can see that we're under the reorder point, when this is a manufacturing point, actually, as far as manufacturing is concerned. We're under that reorder point, and we're saying that we need to ideally manufacture 22,412 items to get back to our order up to a maximum. But we do have some constraints here as far as the manufacturing is concerned, minimum order or minimum manufacturing constraint of 1,000 items and batch sizes of 500. So we've automatically rounded that to 22,500 that we need to manufacture. Okay, so this is our recommended order. If we go to the order screen over there, you will see that on that order screen again, much like the last one that I showed you, I've got the production line there at the top. So from a manufacturing point of view, we can recommend production orders over here. And if I pick that production line, I can see it's the most urgent out of all the orders. So you can actually rank these by urgency, and urgency are items where there are the most stockouts or potential stockouts in that order. So obviously there's a lot of that in this production line over here. So I want to concentrate on that. You can see there's 97 items we're saying need to produce. There's the unit quantity. We can have value. We can have a purchase currency if it's different purchase currency, and we can have volume and we can have weight. Now in the manufacturing, maybe that's not that important, but when it comes to suppliers, if we want to optimize for container loads, we can help optimize for those container loads as well if we have the volumetrics information coming from Sage 100. All right. For things like supplier shutdowns, we can have look forward days. So basically we'll look forward not just at the items that have hit the reorder point today or before today, but also items that might hit the reorder point from our projections in the future. Let's say there's a 60-day shutdown in China. We want to look forward 60 days. You can see it's picked up some more items, some more units, and it's added that to the order. So we cover ourselves for that supplier shutdown over there. In the case of manufacturing, perhaps you want to look forward 7 days to say what else might come up for manufacture in the next 7 days. So we cover ourselves for that. This is my 7-day manufacturing plan, 102 items that we're saying you need to manufacture to cover ourselves for those 7 days as well. So that's the look forward days, really helps a lot with planning for shutdowns or looking forward for your production plan. All right, so let's go into that item over there or that order over there for that manufacturing line or for a supplier, if it be a supplier. We create the order over here. It'll then bring up those items one by one. I can see there's my 2001 that I was talking about before. There's the recommendation of 22,500, taking the order multiples and MOQs or batch sizes and manufacturing quantities in consideration. And we can see all the information. We can see the forecasts over there. We can see the policies. We can see what's on its way here or what's being manufactured already in this case. We can change lead times, a whole bunch of things that we can do over here. From here, we're then going to download and then drive that order back to Sage 100 once we've optimized the order over here and we're happy with what we've received here. In the case of let's say this was an order on supply and we wanted to optimize for container loads, we can actually go in, we can select top-up items, and top-up items are items that have gone through their maximum. They haven't hit the reorder point, and we just top them up to maximum rather than putting them into excess when we select. We can go to volume. We can do this by units, cost, volume, or weight, but I'm going to say volume. And we can actually put in a target. So we've got 57,000, nearly 58,000 cubic meters over there. And let's say we wanted to get to, I don't know, 80,000 and 60,000. 60,000. We can solve, it'll automatically pull items out of that list to get as close as it can to that 60. You can see they were at 59,998.2. Now we have an order that's optimized for a container load, taking pack sizes and minimum order quantities and all that type of stuff into consideration. We can add those items, and now we have an optimized order that we can send back to Sage 100, and then obviously go through your usual workflow, send it off to the supplier. As soon as that is a purchase order in Sage 100, we can see that that is on order, and that will then come off of our suggestions, or it's being manufactured. It'll come off of our suggestions for manufacturing as well. And that's really how we close the loop from pulling all the information out of Sage 100, doing the calculations based on the policy settings that you set for the business, highlighting where the exceptions are so that you can be proactive in driving towards those targets, and then also producing orders at a touch of a button that you can push back to Sage 100 and send off to your suppliers to make sure that we can optimize inventory. All right, we're coming on to just 15 minutes before the end. There's a lot of stuff that I can show you, and if you are interested in seeing more, you can reach out to us and we can get into a more in-depth demo. But if there are any questions, I do see something up on the Q&A. Any questions directly about the software, anything that we can help you with, I can help you with now, that would be great.
We do have a question for manufactured items. is Netstock using only bill of materials, or is it possible to use other Sage manufacturing modules?
From what I understand, we can use other Sage manufacturing modules, and we have in the past. I have been asked that question before, and there was a specific name for that module, and I did go back and check, and yes, we can. So we own the scripts that pull the information. So if we understand where the information is, we can pull that from the database and add that to. We're quite flexible with that kind of stuff. But yeah, it has been done. So wherever that bill of material sits, we want to get that information from the right source.
Perfect. And I think that was the only question. You were so detailed in your explanations.
Yeah, I get a little bit carried away sometimes. I just say to myself to stop, because I get really passionate about this stuff. But I think, the key thing that I wanted to show you here is just how visual everything is. Once we have the information, the policies have been set. Everything is at your fingertips, and you can make decisions really quickly. And the way that supply chain is the volatility and the way the supply chain is going now, it's very important to be agile. And we might not be able to solve all the problems, but we can highlight those problems and help you solve them a lot quicker. We were talking about in the past, it was easy for us to automate most of the supply chain planning before all the disruptions happened pre-COVID. Now people need us to be able to see what's actually gone wrong and what effect those disruptions have on the business, so that they can make the best decisions they can about trying to overcome those disruptions. Yeah, so the focus has changed a bit as far as planning is concerned. But yeah, it's an incredible tool to be able to assist your business with the planning. There is also, just to show you quickly, within the application, obviously we do an onboarding process, but there are articles, there are videos that are posted in the application. You see the question marks over there, explain to you what it is you're looking at. And if you go through these as well, you'll end up with articles that are suggested that you can read through. There are videos that we can show on, how to action excess products and stuff like that. So even if you have new users that are added to the application, there's no limit on the number of users that can use it. They can learn how to use the product pretty quickly. We also have a directory over here, and we have consultants online that you can message at any time, and they'll be able to help you online, have a look at what's going on your screen, and help you with things that you're busy working with. But we do have extensive training as well, and we have an internal learning platform that's built into the application called Simon, which will have learning paths and stuff that you can go through as well. Very interactive learning to make sure that people are getting better and better at using the application as we're going along. All right, I'm gonna keep quiet now. Stop talking. I'm gonna get stuck in the application for forever. And I don't know if there are any other questions. I didn't see anything else come up, but feel free to ask me. And I think that's it from me.
Perfect. Well, watch for an email after this ends here. There will be a survey if you need CPE credit. Also, just a quick few questions, and I'll also forward this recording on to everybody as soon as we get it posted, along with Vaughn's contact information. So quickly at the end here, I'd like to thank Vaughn for his time today, making this webinar possible, and also our attendees. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending a little bit of it with us. So if there's anything else you need, you know where we're at. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.